Hi everyone, welcome to day 41 of Watching Me Learn Spanish. If you've been following along this week, you know that I'm fighting a virus. I am still a bit sick. I thought that I was getting better. Now I seem to be getting a bit worse again. Stuffy nose, coughing, sore throat. So I just wanted to keep progress going with this Spanish journey that I'm on. So I decided to do pretty much the bare minimum. Um, Unlike the sessions that you've been watching in the earlier weeks where I am creating a 5 minute video on a topic, this week I'm just going through tracks of language transfer with the goal of finishing all of language transfer by tomorrow, which is doable. I have 5 more tracks left. Today I'll do 2, tomorrow I'll do 3. So let's get right into it so that I can spend the rest of the day recovering.
These go verbs, these verbs that take go instead of o for the I version in the present, also behave a little bit strangely in the future tenses, in the will and would tenses. So we can look at that now and, whilst looking at it, revise the endings that we learned for will and would. So we said that our will endings, what we add on to the to form of the verb to get will, are the same as those very irregular versions of haber in the present. So we can make that connection to help us internalize them. Can you talk me through those will endings?
So it's for I, and hemos for us.
For we, very good.
A for he, she, it, and you formal. An for they.
They or you plural. And the last one, you informal.
Us.
Good. So we have the endings. And our endings for would, which again we are adding on to the to form of the verb. We need to remember one key sound for would. If we remember how to say I would like, that's a nice hook to remember the key sound. So what is the key sound?
Ia.
Ia. And then on to ia we can add on, of course, our mos or en or es if we need to. Good. So go verbs, these verbs that have go and then ga for the mood tense, when they are building the futures, they have a contraction. But they all make the same contraction. For example, I will have is tendré. Tendré.
Tendré.
Tendré. So of course it should be teneré. No, but it's tendré. So that last E of tener turns into a D. And we get tendré. This is a contraction because it means we end up with 2 syllables instead of 3. It would be teneré, but it's tendré, which just makes everything a little bit more efficient. But all of these verbs, these go verbs, are behaving in a similar way. So we have to come,
Venir.
venir, and I will come,
Vendré.
vendré. Very good.
Vendré.
I would come, the same contraction for both futures.
Vendría.
Vendría, good. I would come. We would come,
Vendríamos.
vendríamos. We would come later, but we don't have time. We would come later, but we don't have time.
Vendríamos
más tarde, pero no tenemos tiempo.
Good. Vendríamos más tarde, pero no tenemos tiempo. What was to put?
Poner.
And I put?
Pongo.
Pongo. So, this go alerts us to the fact that this verb will behave in this irregular way as well. So if we want to say, I will put it here, how will it be? I will put it here.
Lo pondré aquí.
Good. Lo pondré aquí. I would put it here. I would put it here.
Lo pondría aquí.
Lo pondría aquí.
Good. We would put it here.
Lo pondríamos
Lo pondríamos aquí.
Good. Lo pondríamos aquí. And we will put it here.
Lo pondremos
Lo
aquí.
pondremos aquí.
Good. Lo pondremos aquí. What was to leave or to go out?
Salir.
Salir.
Salir. I leave or I go out?
Salgo.
Salgo.
Salgo. So again, this go can set off a little alarm bell that this verb will probably be irregular in the futures. So how would you say I would leave or I would go out?
Saldría.
Saldría. Good.
Saldría.
You would leave or you would go out informally?
Saldrías.
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 Will you leave? Will you go out tonight? Will you go out tonight?
Saldrés.
¿Saldrías esta noche?
That's would you. Now we want will
Saldrés
you.
esta noche.
¿Saldrás esta noche?
Good. Saldrás esta noche. But of
Saldrás
course we have
esta
esta noche, which is future context. So we could just use the present. We could just say you go out tonight. We don't need the future. So how would that be?
¿Sales esta noche?
Sales esta noche. Good. So for most go verbs, we take off the go and we put dre for I will and dria for I would. With most of them, traer, to bring, doesn't do it. Traeré, I will bring. Atraeré, I will attract. Distraeré, I will distract. But most of these that have go will go to dria or dre. Hacer and decir, to do or to make or to say or to tell, hacer and decir, are particularly irregular. And we've already seen this. We've seen how after haber they become hecho and dicho. It's very irregular. We saw how the informal command from hacer is haz, H-A-Z, again irregular. And here as well, I will do is haré. So it's not following this rule, it's even more irregular. We have haré, I will do or I will make.
Haré.
H-A-R-E, haré. And all we need to do is identify one of these irregularities, and then we understand that all of will and all of would will use the same base that haré has used. So we will do or we will make is
Haremos.
Haremos.
good, and we would do or we would make
Haríamos.
haríamos. We would do it, but we're busy now. We would do it, but we're busy now.
Pero
Lo haríamos, pero estamos
ocupados.
Occupied.
ocupados ahora.
Good. Lo haríamos, pero estamos ocupados ahora. We would do it, but we're busy now. So haríamos is we would do or we would make, and what is we will do or we will make?
Haremos.
Haremos.
Haremos. And they will do, they will make,
Harán.
Harán.
harán. I would say or I would tell is diría. So we get
Diría.
from decir, diría. I would say, he would say, she would say, you formal would say.
Diría.
So, like I said, we just need one of these versions to understand how the rest will be. So if diría is I would say or I would tell, how is I will say or I will tell?
Diré.
Diré.
Diré. I will tell you later, speaking informally.
Te diré más tarde.
Good.
Te
Te diré más tarde.
tarde.
And of course, having future context with más tarde, we could just say,
Te digo más tarde.
good. Te digo más tarde.
Te
I
digo
tell
más
you
tarde.
later. What was to be able to?
Poder.
Poder. How do you say I would be able to or I could?
Podría.
Podría.
Podría. Good. The F falls out. So this is a different irregularity. This is not a go verb. Podría. Of course it was podería, but many years of podería, podería. The E fell away. Podría. How is to put?
Poner.
Poner.
Poner. And I would put?
Pondría.
Pondría. Good. So there's a subtle difference in sound between I would be able to, podría, and I would put, pondría. We would be able to.
Pondríamos.
We would be able to. That's we would put.
Podríamos.
Podríamos.
Podríamos. And we would put.
Pondríamos.
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 Okay, next track.
Looking at the past tenses, the line in the past and the dot in the past, the line in the past is extremely regular. We only have a few odd irregular verbs for the line in the past. Ser is one of them, and we can remember by thinking of an era. So what is the base for ser as a line in the past?
Era.
Era.
Era, good. So this means I was, you formal were, he, she, it was as a line in the past. How would you say we were?
Éramos.
Éramos.
Éramos, good. The accent
Éramos.
doesn't move. Éramos. They were or you guys were?
Eran.
Eran.
Eran. And you informal?
Eras.
Eras. Good.
Eras.
We had the line in the past of ir, which was a little bit like a mix between the aba ending that we have for ar verbs for the line in the past and the ia ending that we have for ir verbs in the line in the past. So what was I was going from ir?
Iba.
Iba.
Very good. Iba. We were going.
Íbamos.
Íbamos.
You informal.
Ibas.
Ibas.
And they or you guys.
Iban.
Iban.
Iban. Good. And then we had ver, to see. How is I see in the present?
Veo.
Yeah.
Veo.
Veo.
And this extra e that it keeps for the I form in the present, veo, carries over into the line in the past. So I was seeing, you formal were seeing, he, she, it was seeing is veía.
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 So we were seeing,
Veíamos.
Veíamos.
you informal,
Veas.
Veías.
and they.
Vean.
Veían.
Good. So the line in the past is a very safe tense. We just have a few irregular verbs, but for the rest, we can be very certain that taking off the r and putting aba, or taking off the ir and putting ia, is going to give us the result that we want. The point in the past is less regular, less reliable. There are a group of verbs in the dot or the point in the past which are irregular, but they all do something very similar. Now, most of the verbs in this group are got verbs, but not all of them. Now, what these verbs do in the point in the past is that firstly, the beginning bit of the verb. So, for example, if we have poder, that beginning bit, pod, changes. And we already saw this. We saw, for example, they were able was pudieron. So that pod changes to pud. Here it's a little change, but there are more drastic changes with other verbs. So this is the first thing. The base of the verb that is left once we take the endings off changes. Sometimes radically, sometimes a little bit like here from pod to pud. The second thing that they do is that they use a mixture of the point endings from ar verbs and from ir verbs. They use a mixture of the two endings from both sides, but always the same mixture for each of these irregular verbs. And the third thing they do is to not have the accent on the endings. So firstly, let's revise the point in the past with hablar and comer, just to refresh what are these endings. So we have hablar, to speak, and I spoke is
Habló.
Hablé.
good. And
Hablé.
he spoke, or she spoke, or you formal spoke,
Habló.
Habló.
habló. And then we had to eat, which was comer, and I ate,
Comí.
Comí.
comí. And he ate, or she ate, or you formal ate, it ate,
Comó.
habló. And then with comer it's
Comió.
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 Good. Back to hablar. How was we spoke?
Hablamos.
Hablamos. Good. Same as the
Hablamos.
present tense. And they spoke?
Hablaron.
Hablaron. And you informal spoke, which in the you informal version we hear that informal S and the informal T in the ending.
Hablaste.
Hablaste. Good.
Hablaste.
Back to comer. How is we ate?
Comemos.
Comemos. Comimos.
Comimos.
Yeah.
They ate, or you guys ate.
Comieron.
Comieron.
Comieron. And you informal ate?
Comaste.
Comiste.
Very good. Comiste. So that's the panorama of our dot in the past. But these irregular verbs use a mixture of these two groups for different endings in the point in the past. For example, tener, to have, in the point in the past, the way that ten changes, that root changes, we said that's the first thing that happens, the ten of tener becomes tuv, T-U-V.
Tuf.
And I had is tuve, and
Tuve.
he, she, it had is tuvo. So we're not accenting the endings, tuve, tuvo. So where are these two endings coming from, e and o? Are they coming from the ar verbs or from the ir verbs?
Ar.
Good. So we have tuve and tuvo. So these two endings for I and for he, she, it, you formal come from ar, and the rest come from ir. So how would you say we had with the point in the past?
Tuvimos.
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 And you informal?
Tuviste.
Tuviste. And they?
Tuvieron.
Tuvieron.
Tuvieron. Good. So now that we've worked our way through this one verb, all we need to do for the other ones is to find the base, the irregular base for the verb, and then we know what to do with it. What was to be for states?
Ser.
Estar.
Estar. Now, I was, the point in the past from estar is estuve. So it's nice to look at tener and estar together, because we have tuve for I had and estuve for I was.
Estuve.
And I wasn't?
No estuve.
No estuve.
Good. He was, she was, you were, formal.
Estuvo.
Estuvo.
Good. We were,
Estuvimos.
Estuvimos.
estuvimos. You were, informally,
Estuviste.
Estuviste.
estuviste. Where were you?
¿Dónde estuviste?
¿Dónde estuviste?
¿Dónde estuviste? They were, you guys were,
Estuvieron.
Estuvieron.
estuvieron. Where were you guys?
¿Dónde estuvieron?
¿Dónde estuvieron?
Good. ¿Dónde estuvieron? So whilst we have these irregular forms, which need a little bit more effort, many times you can just use the line in the past instead. So if you say something like, ¿Dónde estuviste? Where were you? And here we're using a point in time, so maybe it sounds like, where were you in this precise moment when we needed you? But even so, we could still just use the line in the past to get around this irregular tense. Now, we don't want to avoid it forever. Anything that we don't control of the language will end up controlling us. Anything we are uncertain of, that we don't take the control of, will control us. But many times you're in a conversation and you don't have time to find that irregular form. And maybe you want to worry about it later and check and think about what it was. In that case, you can just turn to the line in the past, ¿Dónde estabas? Instead of ¿Dónde estuviste? So how would you say I had to go using this point in the past? So how is I had using the point in the past?
Tuve.
Good. So I had to go?
Tuve que ir.
Good. So tuve que ir, you would want to use it if you meant that
Tuve
in
que
one
ir.
precise moment, something happened and I had to go. Tuve que ir.
Tuve que ir.
But you could also use the line in the past and not have any problem there if you wanted to avoid this irregular tense just to get the meaning across. So you can just say tenía que ir, which is regular,
que
to
ir.
avoid using this irregular tense. What was to say or to tell?
Decir.
Decir.
Decir or contar, but decir we are working with for now. So des becomes dich in the point in the past. Dich. D-I-J. What is I said?
Dich.
Dije.
Dije.
Dije. He said.
Dij.
Dijo.
Good. We said.
Dijimos.
Dijimos.
Dijimos. Good. So they are using the same endings, this group of irregular verbs. E and o from the R group, and then the rest of the endings from the ir group for the point in the past.
Okay, gonna wrap it up and really looking forward